Welcome to the Accountants Exposed podcast, where we create light bulb moments for our listeners by exposing the journeys, secrets, and insights of some of the top players in accounting. This podcast is brought to you by Michael Edelstein, Director and Founder of Recruitment Expert, a specialist accounting recruitment agency working across Australia, New Zealand, and Asia Pacific. Hello everyone, ladies, gentlemen, and accountants. Now, I know you've missed me as I've had quite a few partners around the country ask me when the next podcast is coming out. I'm sorry for the haters, but in that time I've gotten married, bought a house, and moved in amongst many other things. But the good news is we're now back in full swing with 5 podcasts recorded in the last 2 weeks. So to get us going, I have the wonderful Shaye Thyer as our guest today. And what a fun conversation we had. Probably spent way too much time laughing, hence the length of our podcast. But behind all the jokes, she's a high-achieving accountant that's a fellow CA, former director of BDO Adelaide, and considered as one of the most influential women in accounting, and is now heading up Mindbridge in the APAC region. And please enjoy as we discuss all things accounting firms should be doing better. And that's all of you guys. Please enjoy. Hi, Shaye.
Hi, Michael.
I kept seeing your name pop up like in this publication and that interview, and I was like, I have to have her as a guest. So thank you so much for making the time to join me on the podcast today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Now, I believe you started as a tax undergrad at one of the mid-tier firms in Adelaide. What made you get into accounting in the first place?
It actually wasn't deliberate. So like my whole childhood, I only ever wanted to be a lawyer. Like that was like I thought I was born to be a lawyer, and there's many days where I think that is actually still true. Especially when we start talking about, things that I have particular agendas and various pieces of activism and things like that. But I always wanted to be a lawyer, and I started a double degree when I first went to uni, and I actually sucked at the law part of it, which I was devastated about because I'm not one of those people that's like does nothing and gets good grades or does well. I have to work hard at the things that I'm good at, right? Or to get good grades, I had to actually work hard. My brother was completely the opposite. He was a lazy sod and just sort of got the best marks and breezed through everything. But I was so devastated when I didn't do well because I thought that was my identity, right? I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. But on the flip side of that, all of my business subjects, because I was doing double in law and commerce, was doing really, really well, and quite like I was still working hard, but quite easily. So I dropped my law degree.
Debits and credits just balanced out. The reconciliations out, yeah.
It was the T ledger got me.
Many a career have started.
Oh my goodness gracious! And do you know what? Like we might get to talk about this later, but I was talking to a uni professor just last week who was, we were having a rant about the lack of, technology application in uni courses and stuff like that. They still do T ledgers on the whiteboard. Like
nothing
it's
wrong
just.
With those. How would you have them do it?
Well, I just look. I don't always have all the answers, but I still think that is a bit. Come on, I think we could do it better than that. I think there's something we could introduce that's a bit more work practical. But I'm still not answering your question. So I didn't deliberately choose accounting, but I did find that I did quite well at it. I really enjoyed particularly a lot of the international business subjects, not necessarily tax specifically, but there was an opportunity at one of the really, they're actually an excellent firm in Adelaide. They're just Adelaide-based and Darwin, I think. But I started as an undergrad while I was finishing uni, so I actually worked full-time and studied full-time at the same time, which is I do not recommend because it was exhausting.
It was great. I love my experience.
Yeah. I was
Mind you, I never had to do a double degree, so I was like, I just had to do my T ledgers, and that was pretty easy, especially when you're doing accounting or auditing on the side.
Yeah, I think I just felt like, oh my gosh, I've wasted so much time because I started law and then dropped it and thought, I better crank this out. I'm already behind, which I wasn't. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I started in just, business services. At that point, most of my day looked like rekeying numbers out of a spreadsheet into a BAS or standing at the photocopier or the little binder thingy where you put the collations together and you punch holes in it and then you make it really pretty and da-da-da. no idea
I was talking
why.
to my wife the other day, went to office work. So I'm like, and I saw hole punches on the shelf. I'm like, I have not used a hole punch in like 15 years, since
I,
probably high
I
school or
know.
something. Actually, auditing days, auditing days. That's the last time I had to use a
Yes.
hole puncher.
Oh my gosh.
They
Yeah,
still exist. It's amazing.
they do. I know. I know. My girls like to come and I've got one in here actually. I they like to come and steal it when they're making craft stuff and they thread, string through it and they make pretty things out of it. But that's all it gets used for.
Yeah, because kids like are all on iPads these days, right? That's cool.
Well, not my kids.
Not your
I'm a
kids?
little bit of a electronics Nazi over here, but
The irony again,
I
being
know.
a person such a big proponent of tech, even against using, whiteboards for tea ledgers.
Look, if you could have a look around this office, my little home office where I am, I have tried to plaster whiteboards on as much of the wall as I can because we read, so I can't paint it. I can't be cool and have like a whiteboard painted wall. Otherwise, I totally would. And so I'm all about the whiteboard. But
I
yeah,
have two whiteboards like right there as well.
see, that just would not be enough for me because mine are covered constantly. That's how I think. I draw pictures. That's how I process information.
You're a very visual person.
Visually, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. All I see is a blackboard behind you, by the way. It's not a
Yeah.
whiteboard.
Well, it's even actually that's nice sort of textured black paper. It's not even blackboard.
Ah.
There you go.
What do you put on yours? What do you use yours for?
My whiteboards.
Yeah. Or your blackboard.
Um, I put really high level to-do list stuff. So what am I focusing on this week?
Yeah.
On this one opposite me, I've got a process diagram. So I'm trying to nut out a thing for a client about how we drop Mindbridge into the validation step that comes before paying your bills in the AP process. So what do we check? How do we automate it? And how does Mindbridge help with that? So I've got that bashed out on there. I've got a little, oh no, there's some small people that have got hold of that one. So on the other whiteboard, I've got like a wish list of stuff that I would like when I save up the appropriate money for it. So I got my headphones, so I was pretty happy for that.
The ones that didn't work?
The ones that didn't work, yeah, I'll have to send them back. But the girls have got on there and they've written some things, ridiculous toys and things like that. They've written on there that won't.
Wait, I'm curious. What's on the wish list?
My wish list?
Yeah.
Well, I definitely wanted a better set of headphones because I always struggle between when my phone rings and I'm constantly on video calls, but then my phone rings and I have to unplug here and do all this weird stuff. So I wanted like multi-point Bluetooth, but clearly we had issues with those just before. And they're also giving me a little bit of a headache because they're like the over-the-ear ones.
They're massive, yeah. And the issue I have with those like big ones, because I've got these ones, I've got my other ones, but like I like the fact that I can hear myself talk, whereas I've got other headphones and I couldn't hear myself talk, and that was really weird.
Yeah.
Because like they really go over your ear and completely block out all the noise.
Well, these have got that active noise cancelling, which is really good as well because I have sometimes it's louder than others, but consistently have this ringing in my ear. So I have tinnitus that bothers me. So it helps me be just distracted.
It's the worst. My dad has that.
Sucks, man.
It drives him nuts.
Yeah. So on the tech front, there's an app. There's an app.
The white noise stuff, right?
Well, that's the distraction technique, but you can actually get an app that you tune to the same frequency and volume as your tinnitus.
Yeah.
And what you do is you put it on slightly lower volume than your natural tinnitus, go to sleep, and it trains your brain to ignore the sound. So I've found that actually I've only been doing it for about 4 weeks, but it's had a massive, massive difference. Like it doesn't irritate me as much. It's still there, but it doesn't like rile me up and make me anxious and irritable and stuff like this. It doesn't interfere with my focus like it used to. Anyway, that's something that's working for me. So
what's number 2 and 3 on your wish list?
What have I got over there? One is actually a decent haircut because
thank God the video is not recorded. I just don't.
My hair, for all of our friendly listeners, I normally have long hair, but it is now past hippie length. It is past my belt. It is so long. So now it's got to the point where for me to go and get a colour and it's going to cost me lots of money. So I've just put it off and just gone with the real au natural. It's balayage. It's not regrowth,
But it is crazy, how much females spend. I've seen the bills that my mum or my partner paying. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You guys really have to open up your wallet at the hairdressers.
It's choices, right, though. Depends how high maintenance of style you want to go for. But I used to use COVID as an excuse, and because our team is in Canada and they actually have the hairdressers shut. There's some of the blokes have got man buns and stuff now, which I quite like. I like that look, but I don't have that excuse. It's just pure laziness.
Lockdown. Just say, look, we're just in constant lockdown. It's a really hard life. And what's number 3?
Well, that's actually the end of that list.
Oh, just 2.
You
are low maintenance then. That's all you have on your wish list. That's great.
I mean, someone else might strut around here and think, oh, it should be this and it should be that, but I don't really.
You know those sayings you got behind you on the blackboard? Are they stuff that you wrote, or did that come with the board?
No, I made that, but
it's on the board. It's a black paper. Yeah.
On. I don't think there is a lot of original thought left in the world, so I'm I don't know if I've ever invented a saying or anything. So I totally stole a bunch of these from the internet, but
I recognize a few of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. They're just things that really spoke to me at a particular point in time. I guess.
What's your favorite one, so people can get an idea?
On here, so I've got a few, right? So, we say a lot in our house, Sunday is not a day of the week, which is not original, as I said, but there's one here that says, if not now, when? So let's get on with things. There's a couple of feminist ones on here because I'm a staunch feminist. The future is female. Of course the future's female because we make all the babies, right?
And you've got 2 daughters.
And I do have 2 daughters, yes. Anything worth doing will be controversial, and I'm, a fair advocate for that kind of idea. And be very afraid of the silent, smiling woman.
Oh, that's an issue, man. That's fairly original. I haven't seen that one anywhere else.
That one's, a little bit cheeky. But this one, I think my girls and I talk about this one a lot all the time. You were born to be real, not perfect. Because I really don't like that word, and we try not to use that word here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Interesting. How does your husband deal with the staunch feminism?
Well, he knew what he was signing up for. So, bless him. He's a wonderful, wonderful stepdad to my girls. So he knew he was outnumbered. But my youngest is quite, I don't know. The gender of it doesn't actually mean anything to me, but she's a brute. So she does jiu-jitsu. So she does Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So she will, cool. Love a bit of roughhousing and all this sort of stuff, and she's a strong 8-year-old, honestly. She can put my husband to sleep, not soothingly, actually with her jiu-jitsu techniques, which is, as a mum, amazing, because I'm she's going to be the one that's, sneaking out of windows when she's 16 and all that. So she's that kid. My eldest daughter is not. She'll be like, oh, Mum, can you drive me to this party? I'm not sure. Whereas Avery will just be out. So at least she can handle herself. I feel a little bit more confident.
Very important. I would do the same. I told my wife, if we have a daughter, she's going to self-defense classes straight away.
Absolutely. Because it's, words.
But the thing is, your daughter has options, because if you don't let her go, then she'll just put you guys to sleep and take the car. just know the monster that you're training.
I know. Just wake up half a week later. Yeah. I had a great sleep. My goodness.
I want to share my wife. I'm doing this little experiment. Have you ever heard "Don't Break the Chain"?
Yes, I think so, but I don't know what it's about.
Well, I've got 2 whiteboards. One is my long-term goals. One is weekly goals, and I have another kind of section which is, the book One Thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was like the one thing that I'm focusing on today, basically,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how one whiteboard is broken into long-term goals, weekly commitments, and the one thing. And then my other one, I started doing the don't break the chain, which is the a Jerry Seinfeld concept, I think.
Okay.
So his whole one of the things that he attributes his success to was he wrote a joke every single day. Like that was like he had to do a joke every single day, no matter how bad it was. And he would have a calendar, and he would basically have a, you know, imagine a 31 or 30-day calendar, and every day he would fulfill that kind of task, make a joke, he would put a cross in it. And then as you put crosses along kind of the week and then the month, etc., it creates a chain. So the whole
Yep.
concept is don't break the chain. So, and you know, you get a kind of get this like fulfillment factor of like, cool, I crossed something off and I don't want to break it. Like there's that satisfaction, and also you don't want to break something that's going well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm doing like we're in lockdown, so I'm like forcing myself to exercise at home, which is always a struggle, and like a certain diet and a meditation. So that's kind of my little don't break the chain things. So I find that quite useful.
Awesome. That's really good. I think naturally I kind of do a similar thing. It's kind of different, but it's what did I, not so much rubbing out the things on my to-do list when I finish them, but either crossing them out or highlighting them so
Mm.
that I can see what I've achieved. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, of
Because
course.
otherwise it's just this perpetual, to-do list. You just keep
Yeah,
adding
it
to
never
it and stuff.
ends.
So I found that heaps helpful, or heaps more helpful than the way I used to do things. Kind of the same idea, I think. Because we don't stop and sort of reflect otherwise, do we? We don't go, what did I actually achieve today?
Mm.
It's just, oh, what have I got to do tomorrow?
Yes.
It's just reframe. It's exactly the same state, but it's reframing it in your brain, which I
Let's get
quite
back on
like.
topic. As much as I'm enjoying this,
Sure,
like,
sure.
all right. So you got into the undergrad program at Perks, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then actually, I have a curiosity question. What made you
Hmm.
decide like you wanted to be a lawyer?
Um,
Were you like a super argumentative kid or something, or
yeah,
what?
definitely. And my pop, so my dad's dad, who I absolutely adore, he always used to call me his mouthpiece. And that apparently in old people language, that was like, the one that would, stand up in court for him and all of this sort of stuff. He always used to say that to me. So he must have seen something in me that, I don't know, he must have thought that would be good. So I think that was just for a long time. And I totally wanted to be like the good wife, not with the other stuff that goes on in her life, by the way, if you've seen the show, but I
Yeah, I was gonna
always
say,
loved
yeah.
all the lawyer shows, Law and Order. What was that one? Ally McBeal, even though
Ally
that was
McBeal,
oh my
yes.
God, just co-ed
We're like the
toilets.
same age, so we grew up in that shit.
Yeah. I think I just really enjoyed that stuff. And I guess
Boston Legal was my favorite
Boston
one.
Legal was
That
awesome.
was
Yeah.
my favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ellen Shaw.
Honestly, I think it was just that, and maybe just a natural sense of wanting there to be justice and stuff like that. I think that's definitely ingrained in me. My eldest daughter is a bit the same. She's going to be a basketball umpire or commissioner of police or something like that. She's like staunch on the rules.
I think my mum always wanted me to be a lawyer as well. She's like, "You'll be a lawyer," just because I was the argumentative kid as well. Like, would always challenge everything. But then I did a few law assignments, and I'm like, yeah, don't think I want to do this. At uni,
Yeah.
like they're not fun to do.
No,
All the law
so much
assignments,
reading.
so much
So
reading,
much reading.
so much case law to go through.
Mm.
Yeah, I prefer my T ledgers. They were just so much easier.
Yeah.
And I was already in the cadetship, I guess.
Yeah.
But like when I did the whole straight out of high school into it, so I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. The law thing, don't really need it. But anyway, so cool. So you got into that, you finished uni. Somehow you made an interesting transition, which I have seen
Mm.
before, but not quite common. Which you went from business services to in-house
Mm-hmm.
to becoming the kind of internal finance manager.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
I think after doing so many, sticking numbers in a box and collations and things like that, I actually wondered where the helping part started. Like I'd never seen a client, never been involved in any of that. I wasn't sort of given the context of what I was doing in the bigger scheme of, what we were doing for clients.
Yeah, because you were very junior. Yeah,
I was junior, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. But for me, that was important because, what am I here for? Why am I doing this? I'm happy to do
Mm,
it, but like, why am I actually doing it? Um, and that piece just wasn't there. So for me, I wanted to learn how to actually run a business, and that the opportunity was to learn how to run an accounting business, which I now know is vastly different from any other business, any other commercial organisation. But because I thought, well, how am I going to move through in a client-facing role if I've actually never learned how to run a business and I'm just doing the stuff on the end, that is tax and BAS and blah, blah, blah. And how do I ever help if I don't understand that properly? Like if I don't understand how their financial statements come to be, right? What does an accounts payable process look like? I wasn't going to learn that in business services. How does accounts receivable work in different types of business? Professional services is different. What is debtors? Like, why do debtors matter and where do they come from? I don't know. Well, I was never going to have the opportunity to learn that. So that's why I was interested to move into that internal team, because I wanted to learn how to run a business.
How long was this like into your accounting career that you started to have these kind of questions or realizations?
It wasn't very long. So I was probably the most annoying grad ever. I reckon it was only 18 months or so. Maybe
that's
2
pretty
years.
good.
Yeah.
You got 18 months out of you before of collation and hole punching and
yeah. I think, and charge rates at that stage, like this is such a long time ago. I'm such a grandma, but I reckon my charge rate was still well below $100.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what was your salary back then?
I reckon I remember when I started, because I used to work in hospitality, right? So as a casual, you don't earn bad money for a 20-year-old.
No, it's really good, especially Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, and so I started and I was like, oh, I live at home and I can't actually live on that. So I went, oh, no, I can't actually live on that. I'd be better off making coffees. And they went, oh, okay, here's a little bit more. But I don't think it was maybe $47,000 or something like that.
No, that would have been a grad, but as an undergrad. Well, you got 47 as an undergrad.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had experience. So my dad has, he's always been a small business owner. So he's a financial advisor and he's always been, I don't know, I've always been involved in his business. So like not age appropriate, right? But, just we used to talk at dinner about stuff, how he would have challenges recruiting. He's in the country, I need staff for this. This is how we're growing. This is what business development looks like, all of that sort of stuff. And so I used to look after his books. So I knew how to manage a tea ledger. So maybe that helped with a few extra thousands as an undergrad, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. No, I was thinking like my salary was like 21 or 22 grand or something back then.
You must be older than me, Michael.
Well, you only started a few years after me. But I started straight out of high school, so 2003.
Yeah, okay.
As an undergrad. But as an undergrad, the grad salaries were around the 40 something. Yeah. But as a cadet straight out of high school, when you know nothing and not even your credits and debits, was 21, 22 grand.
Well, maybe it was just timing, because I literally had 2 or 3 subjects left at uni and I was done.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it was only this,
I reckon I got such good value out of the cadets because, as you said, I was 6 months into my job, I was training grads that were earning double what I was earning. I was like, this is ridiculous. But as a 17, 18-year-old, 20 grand seemed like a lot of money. You're wearing a suit, you've got a laptop, you think you're something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 18 months into it, you got into an internal finance role and then worked your way up to finance manager, or were there
Okay. Yeah, so I had the most amazing manager. She was brutal with me. She, at appropriate times, got me to pull my head in, all this sort of stuff. But she taught me so much. And one of the things that she helped me with most significantly, as much as I have very strong views about the way things should look, was actually how to navigate the boys' club. Because like many firms now and then, it was all the partners were men, and in an internal finance role in an accounting firm, it's very different from being in a finance team in a commercial organisation, right? You're actually relied upon to provide advice on something, but when there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to provide advice to a board of FCAs, right? They all know more than me. Like, what am I going to tell them? I can put the stuff together that they need to do the things that they want to do, but ultimately there's not a lot of value that I'm going to be able to bring at 22 years old or whatever, 23 years old. So it was an excellent sort of learning environment from that perspective, at the same time as learning how to run a business, all the various mechanisms of how...
Was it just you and her at the time in the finance department?
We had... Well, no, because we did everything manually, and we had big binders of management reports that had beautiful coloured tabs and all printed out. So we had, by today's standards, I would say we had way too many staff, but we didn't have any automation, so it makes sense. So we had, I think we had nearly 4, or even 5, maybe 5,
So you wanted to work directly with the finance manager and learning how to navigate the boys' club. What did you learn? What's the best way to navigate it?
Yeah, look, I remember really distinctly one performance review, her saying to me, "You're amazing. You do this, and this really well. But the bit that you need to learn is that perception is everything. Output is not everything." And I remember at the time, like, going home and throwing my toys out of the cot and going, "That's BS, buh." But it was literally all about, unless you are seen to be doing the things that fit in the box of what they think a high performer is, then in their minds, you are not a high performer. So the way I managed uni and work and blah, 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 and when I started my CA is I would come in at like 5:15 in the morning, study, I know, crazy woman, study, and then do my work, because if I left my study till after work, I was fried and I wouldn't do it. So, but that meant that at 5:00 p.m. I was knackered and I go home, because I've already been at work for 12 hours, and I would start early anyway because I've had enough of whatever CA subject I was doing. But because it wasn't seen, it didn't matter. And so as much as it irritated me, and it shouldn't be that way, and we're seeing a big shift now in those kind of things, it was really important. The things that she taught me was, whether you like it or not, some of these things are the way they are, and unless you've got skills to deal with it, you're going to undermine everything else that you try and do. So you could be the best performer ever, but if no one sees it, it does not matter to the world. So that was important for me at that age, because I actually at the time didn't realise that, I didn't realise that I could influence things to be different. I wasn't confident enough. I was 20-something. Like, I wasn't worldly. But now looking back, I think, there was heaps of opportunity to influence things to be different. But it is what it is, right?
How long did it take for you to climb up to finance manager then?
Golly, a couple of years. So I got the chance to sort of step into it and step out of it, because my manager went and had her babies. So that was great, because it was like try before you buy, right? And it was great opportunity to be elevated, potentially before I was 100% ready. So that was great. Golly, I'd have to pull up my LinkedIn to check. I can't remember. But let me think about it. Avery, so I finished up when Avery was born. So that was 2012. Taya was born in 2010. I was a finance manager when Taya was born. So there's 5 years between undergrad and finance manager in there.
Yeah, okay.
So
and then
maybe
you stay there for quite a few more years after that. Well, I guess, how did you transition to tech? Like, and obviously this it's the reason why I brought it up, is like that journey into what you've been really passionate probably for the last 4 or 5 years, which is the tech part and automation and data. How did that all come about?
So after I left Perks, I was in industry for a little while and learnt how to run another type of business, so import-export, a business that deals in stuff rather than time. And it wasn't until after that when I joined quite a small firm, so more of an advisory consulting firm, that I was introduced to Xero. Like, I was such a late adopter of Xero. I'm not one of those pioneer anythings. But as soon as I was like, my tiny mind was blown. So I was like, this is the thing this is why I have thought this thing is so hard for so long. Like, why does it take so long? How can it possibly add value to the board, me taking the entire month to tell them about last month? Like, that's dumb. And so it just answered so many questions for me. So within the type of work that I was doing there, I wouldn't have been able to do it without cloud accounting. So as soon as cloud accounting landed on me and I was like, oh, this is a thing, this is amazing, I was all over it. I was like, everyone must be doing this. Otherwise, we are literally stuck in the dark ages. This is solving so many problems for me. There must be broader application. So, and I immediately used to think back. So it wasn't even that long. It was like 2 years between leaving Perks and joining this firm and learning about this, and me thinking, why didn't I know about that? Why were we doing the binder thing still?
How did we live?
Yeah, exactly.
The dark ages.
Oh my goodness. And I think by that stage we'd got to the point where we were putting the paper together in a PDF. So like we digitized it, but there was no automation in the process. You know, don't even ask me about how engagement letters and proposals and bills used to come about. Oh my gosh, no wonder we needed like a whole person to manage that. It was ridiculous, such a slow process. But that's the real answer, Michael. I was such a late adopter of cloud, but as soon as I learnt about it, I was like, hot diggity dang, everybody needs a piece of this. And this is, you know, really quite game-changing for clients, especially for clients, because I was always driven by, I'm here to help. Like, I'm not, debits and credits are part of that, but I'm not, that doesn't light me up, right? It's actually helping. It's having conversations with clients. It's helping them with the thing that they're struggling with, because I've got a skill set that they don't. So together we can make cool things happen. Like, there's just so much more capacity and opportunity to do that when we're leveraging good tech that sits in the middle, that enables that, right? So, yeah, that's when I got quite excited.
And then you miss practice so much, you're like, you know what, let's get back into it.
Yeah, I missed it.
So you got into video, doing a similar kind of role, no? As Perks, but
yeah, well,
with a different mandate.
The way that they drew up that, because it was a contract role I took in the first instance. So their finance manager had a baby and they needed someone to come and look after things while she wasn't there. But the way they spec'd it up was almost like a consulting project. It was, we want to make this engine run a bit better. We want someone that can do that. And, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that's literally what it was. So I was able to come in and, you know, do the listening tour. So make sure that I wasn't just going to bulldoze anything straight off the bat, but have a look at the way the firm operated. Because I'd only been involved in the running of one firm. Not all the firms, one, right? Yeah. So I was like, let's see what we've got here. But again, a huge number of staff in finance, so much manual process. There was even a team member that used to push a trolley of paper around the office still. And I just thought, oh, bless, that is such a waste of your time. And never mind all the other commercials. So, yeah, I had the opportunity to really redesign that entire function within the business, which was really cool and really exciting, and really the first go I'd had on a bigger scale. Like, I'd done it with clients in the capacity as a consulting CFO, right? So let's move you to the cloud and da-da-da. But from an accounting firm perspective, I was like, well, this is really important because I know that your business services team are talking to clients about moving to cloud, but you don't even run your own practice in the cloud. Gosh, we've got to fix that, right? So we really ripped the guts out of it, really, which was exciting, and it was really amazing to have the opportunity to do that, particularly as someone that was new to the business. So it was just a big, massive business case to the board, really, that says, this is how we do it now. These are all the things that I think we should do. There was a stack of 5 or 6 different products in there to bring automation to the various functions. I outlined how that would how the tentacles would run through the wider business. So how does that help our accountants? How does that help our team assistants that spend all day keying invoices and yada, yada, and on the phone to clients who haven't paid and blah, blah, blah. And what does that actually mean for how we resource the finance team? And it meant that we didn't need half of the team, which is quite confronting. It's actually the thing that I like the least about this stuff is I'm not in the business of making people redundant. I don't like it. If someone else can do it, I would get them to do it. I don't like it because I think it's hard. So it was a great challenge, actually, to work with the team and say, well, you do this, but if you could choose, what were the things you would actually like to do? So, for example, someone in payroll that's literally keying timesheets, keying from one system to another system, keying timesheets in to pay people. She actually said, well, I would love to work with clients to help them have a better process around their payroll. And I was like, amazing. So even though I didn't have a full role for her afterwards, we were able to find a spot for her within the business services team. And she was doing things that to her were more meaningful, added heaps more value to the world than rekeying data. And that was a really good outcome. So we were able to do that right across the team, actually. So everyone was redeployed. Everyone that we couldn't find a spot for in the way they wanted to work, we were able to redeploy into the business services team. So that was such a good outcome.
What did the trolley pusher end up doing? Is there still an unemployed trolley pusher somewhere in the world?
She was so much more capable than pushing trolley. I can tell you. So she was responsible for part of the AP function, and she also moved into a bookkeeping role within the business services team. At a part-time, she wanted to work part-time. She had a couple of babies, and it was perfect actually because we just broke off the client work that fitted with her, and she loved it, and she didn't push trolleys anymore. And she learned new skills, right? Everyone was like, this was all new for everyone. Cloud was new. They were like, this is awesome. Can't believe we've ever done it a different way. It's like, well.
And you probably had to learn all of this on the go, right? Because it's not like, because it was very different to how you used to do it before. It's not like you went from Perks doing all this automation stuff into BDO. How did you go about actually picking up the skills yourself and learning all the tech and implementing it? Did you have to use consultants or you just did it yourself?
Heaps of webinars. And I'm a real tinkerer. So I've always run, I'm such a nerd. I run our home finances in accounting software. So for example, when I was learning how to use Fathom, I just connected Fathom to my own Xero file and started to see if I was a business, how would I like to structure this? How does it work? Tinker away. That's actually how I tested.
What is Fathom, by the way?
Fathom's like a management reporting tool, does forecasting and all sorts of really cool things now. But at the time, it was just a really smart way to surface management reports from the accounting system, not just a P&L and a balance sheet, like actual meaningful reports at a management level. But working out what was the right fit for the board in that business, I played with that. I pulled Futurely out, which is in the same sort of bucket, Spotlight as well. So I was running these 3 files and just tinkering with it because I hadn't done it before. I hadn't actually done it before, and working out the right fit, not just what the coolest thing was at the time, was really important to actually get hands dirty and to actually do that.
Okay. I've got a question for you. You've obviously been tinkering and playing around for quite a few years now, and you've been in the Xero Advisory Council, and now you're in the tech. You're actually on the other side now, selling the stuff. If I was to transplant you, say from where you are now, say from BDO, into a typical accounting firm, say 2 to 3 partners, 20 staff, somewhere in the country, small practice, and you only had a week there, what would you do? What would you change? Like, what are some of the specific things that you go about and going, cool, I'm going to go for the greatest impact, and you've only got a week?
Depends what's broken. The very first thing I would do is make sure that everyone at least has a skill set using a cloud accounting product. Doesn't matter which one it is. Green or blue, or purple, but green or blue, preferably. That would be the very first thing, because if they don't, then we have a serious problem. That's actually not hard. That doesn't take very long, because if you've got debits and credits down, normally if you jump into a cloud accounting product, it just makes your life easier and you're like, amazing, why haven't I had this my whole life? So that would be the first thing. Oh, golly gosh. It's a really hard question. How I'm supposed to answer this with, that's a great question, Michael.
I get that a lot. Don't worry. Flattery won't work on me.
That would be the very first thing. The next thing that I would do is a week. Ugh.
I know.
See,
We're a fast-moving industry, Shaye.
I know. Oh my gosh. I'm thinking something about how we understand the impact we're having. So, what are the mechanisms within the business to share amongst the team the wow moments, right? So not just, yay, we finished 50 tax returns, but how are we coming back from interactions with clients and sharing the things that worked, where the smiles came from, how they've improved their business, all that. So that impact-focused stuff, there isn't like a real formal structure or methodology or whatever to it, but do we do it? And if we don't do it, how do we do it? And let's do it now. Because of all of the amazing data and things that we should be measuring to help us run our accounting practices, I believe one of the most important things is actually really qualitative, and you have to be deliberate and manual in surfacing it. And that's in understanding the impact we're having on our clients. Right?
And then sharing it and making sure everyone does it.
Yep, exactly. Using that as part of the motivation for why people like doing what they're doing, because most accountants, you ask them, why do you do what you do? They don't say because I like debits and credits, and I certainly don't like the ATO, but there'll be something about helping. There'll be something in there about something qualitative that speaks, you could sort of summarize as being impactful or the ability to help. So they're probably the first two things. I don't know if I'd get through much more in a week because I would just be listening to everybody.
Well, I mean, you would have to start off that, like, oh, cool. What are the what's going on right now, and then tell you, we're traditional firm country. Some of our clients are in zero, but we do everything on MyoBayo, etc., and they use handy tax and handy software, everything. Do the tax returns. The juniors kind of don't see clients, etc. Like your typical accounting firm that I come across, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, what would you do in a week to have the greatest impact on a firm like that, and their clients and their staff? Like, would it be any particular apps or a particular way of doing things that has biggest bang for buck, basically, or biggest bang for buck in terms of time and money?
Those two things, and then I would say my very strongly worded suggestion would be to make sure that you never go to a client meeting on your own. You always take someone less senior than you, because what that does, particularly for not metro firms, so everyone else, but actually everyone should do this, is succession. It's about succession. So if we're in a space right now where we have a massive shortage of senior people and senior accountants, senior auditors right across the industry. There's lots of reasons for that, but we perpetuate that by sending work offshore. We perpetuate that by not developing our young people in the skills that they need to become senior. So if they've never spoken to a client, how do they develop the skills to speak to a client? If they've never seen anyone in action, how are they ever going to learn? Because we're so wrapped up in, oh gosh, but that's a $120 chargeable person sitting in the corner looking pretty. But what we're not realizing is that is actually one of the most impactful investments in L&OD that you can have in your firm is just coaching and shadowing for young people.
No, 100%. It's what I've been hearing from quite a few of the other big industry kind of experts that say the same thing. 100%. But okay, cool. What if you had a month?
Cool. Month. Well, we would make sure that we have a cracking practice management suite, and then we're not, having to rekey data and do
what does
all
that look
sort of
like?
Stuff. What does that look like?
Yeah,
it depends.
Specifics. Accountants like specifics.
You want me to quote names of stuff? Well, do you know what? As my good friends Ali and Andrew would say, your tech stack is unique to you, but it could be, as long as the most important things to do around your practice management suite are make sure that you always champion the experience of the client above all else. So don't automate the guts out of a thing that means the client experience is going to be rubbish. So don't replace your wonderful, excitable, super warm, lovely person on reception with an iPad. Like, it's horrible, honestly. It might save you a salary, but seriously. But where it does enhance the client experience or it doesn't detract from it, get in there. So, we'd definitely be making sure that the way we're engaging from a contractual perspective with our clients has a level of automation. So we have to digitize that. So, looking at tools like Practice Ignition for engagement letters and proposals and billing and all of that sort of stuff. It doesn't just help with the experience. It helps with debtors. It helps with being able to move to a more regular income flow, so more, monthly revenue, rather than at the end of a tax return, we will send a bill that we might have a dispute over. It helps clients with their cash flow as well. So we'll definitely be doing that. We must be using whatever tax product makes sense, that we don't have to rekey stuff out of a client system into the tax stuff. So if that's XPM Zero Tax, I forget what they're called now, but if that's Zero Tax for your Zero clients, do it. If it's Logit for your QBO clients, do it. I'm not super familiar with the purple products, but if it's that, then do it. We just don't want to be rekeying stuff. It's an absolute waste of everybody's time and just fraught with danger in terms of errors. I'm still on the fence about timesheets.
Interesting. Why?
Yeah, well, I used to be, burn the timesheets, they're horrible, they are really bad for people's brains and blah, 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 blah. But then from a practice management perspective, you go, well, now I don't have any data. Now I don't have any data to understand things. So what I would be looking to do is, as much as possible, simplifying the way we record time. If there's any way to get automation in there, do it. I haven't seen anything specific that does it really well, but incentivize that part of practice hygiene so that within the practice we can make good decisions about, how much our clients actually cost to service and whether we've spec'd the fee correctly. All of that sort of decision-making information.
Because it's an interesting one, because there's a lot of industry people like your Rob Nixons, etc., like burn the timesheets, etc., value pricing only, blah blah blah. And there's quite a few other people that I've interviewed that have said the same thing. But from someone that's actually been on the practice management side, it's an interesting perspective. Yeah, what do we do with the data? How do we resource plan?
Yep.
How much does it actually cost to service a client, and should we keep the client? All of those questions are a lot harder to answer without a timesheet.
They absolutely are, particularly if you have any kind of growth ambitions, because if we do all aspire to be that, blah, 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 $1 million per partner practice, and I love Rob Nixon, don't get me wrong, it has changed the way I think about things so much. But at the same time, when I've applied that to some of the things that I've done, I wonder whether there's a middle ground. I think there's a data for decision-making part in timesheets that I can't disconnect from, but I hate. If I had a month, I would completely remove any sort of staff performance, anything connection to time. Remove it. It is such a bad way to incentivize behavior. It incentivizes the wrong behavior, in my view. It incentivizes behaviors that are incongruent with amazing client outcomes.
So what would you incentivize? Because it's interesting. No one's ever brought that up before.
Really?
Well, because the system, the accounting model is so much entrenched with the multiple, right? Like your salary is 100, you should be billing 250, and obviously your charge out rate reflects that. Well, should be billing 300 theoretically, but no one really achieves a multiple of 3, like in their dreams. So that's really what when candidates call me up and like, Michael, what do I do to get a pay raise? I'm like, cool. Print out your report of your billings and your productivity, take it to the partner, and based on the multiple, tell them that's your salary. So obviously you don't need to have KPIs necessarily around it, but there is that clear kind of connection between how productive you are and how good you are as an accountant.
But should there be? And the
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
the reason I say that is because and I'm not saying that your advice is bad. Absolutely, for the vast majority of partners, that would be the way to business case your own salary increase. No question. However, that individual doesn't have control over what the partner is setting as the fees for the job. So if you're trying to, even if you're doing your best work, if the partner has done a deal with a client and it's so lean, that's not your failing. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that thinking also doesn't work with a value mindset, right? So it might take me, let's just say, for example, you and I go and have coffee, you're my client. I know you're going to ask me about, let's just say, whether my home office expenses are deductible or not. And you say, I want to know what this looks like, blah, blah. And I say, do you know what? If I give you I know the answer, right? If I give you the answer straight up, you'd be like, thanks, mate. I'll pay for the coffee. See you later. But if I say, I'm going to come back to you in 24 hours, you go, yeah, cool. So there's a perception there. So that actual piece of information took me 10 seconds to think about because I think about it all day, but it's part of my expertise, right? And it's just added a huge amount of value to you. Let's just pretend it added a huge amount of value to you, right? If I take 24 hours to come back to you, knowing that it's not going to break anything, your perception of what the value perception of the information that I've just given you is much higher. So I can actually charge you for that activity. But in my timesheet, it took me 5 seconds to think about it, right? So when we start to properly price and deliver on value, the whole mechanism of time input is broken. It's completely broken because I should get faster and more efficient at the advice I'm giving. It should take me less time because I do it all the time like this. And if I'm smart practice, I'll start to productize some of that stuff. So even share it through content marketing, that kind of thing. But does that mean it is less valuable to the client? No, it's the same value or more. So it means it should still attract the same revenue.
Okay.
So, but how, and this is why the timesheet thing upsets me because we still need to understand what that looks like. We still need to understand the data that we're playing with, that we're working with within the business. But at the individual level, there is more to an amazing operator than what their timesheet says. Much more.
So what's the solution?
I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. The solution is, well,
should we get you another whiteboard so you can process map it out?
Yes. Well, my niece has just been in here and I've got this beautiful, beautiful picture of a lady on my whiteboard now. It's very pretty. I think part of the management model in our firms is a bit broken because the traditional way we move through a firm is when we get real good at doing, we get elevated to being in a management role, leadership role. Now, being good at doing does not maketh a leader in any industry. You could be a leader that's, okay at the doing, but is actually a brilliant leader, and they should be a leader, right? But that's not how our firms work normally. So when we move to, say, let's just say I'm a senior accountant, I get promoted to be a manager. I've never learned how to manage a team. I don't know how to manage workflow. I've seen someone else do it, but I don't know what that is. I don't know how to coach my team. I don't have those skills. I haven't been taught that. And I still have to charge at least 80% of my time. So where the hell am I getting time to manage a team, to lead a team, to do that thinking, to start learning how to price and, BD and all that? Where does that fit? It doesn't fit. There's no room for it. So two things that I think we should do within that. I think we should actually have if you're in another sort of commercial business, you get someone with amazing operational skills to run workflow. This is how, it's a COO, right?
Yep.
So if we had mini COOs within our businesses taking that workflow work from our managers get to actually deliver advice at the level they should. They have more capacity to coach their team, and they're not doing all of this sort of admin-y grunt work, cat herding, workflowy stuff. And the thing works better. I've forgotten the question you answered, but I think I'm still on the same track.
So you're saying get like a dedicated person,
yeah,
even in a small firm, like with
absolutely.
it might,
and I don't know if we'll have time to get onto this, but you know who people generally, where I've seen this done really well is with return to work mums, because they can multitask.
Yep, I'm a big believer in that. That was part of my
And,
business model. Hire a lot of mums.
well, they can manage a ship, right? There's moving parts. They multitask well. They get people on task and outdoor and da-da-da-da-da. Golly gosh, give them the workflow stuff to do. They nail it. It's amazing.
Hmm.
I can't. What was your original question? Something about the value thing. Is that what you asked?
I'm trying to remember now because we were like skipped. I think we moved on to like if you had a month, what would you do? And then you started kind of
Yeah.
saying one of the biggest things you would change would be, and that was a tangent basically.
I've never gone off on a tangent
Never.
ever.
They make for the best conversations though.
I know.
Ava, look, is there anything else like, because I had a whole bunch of other questions, but like, if we had to combine the two of them, which is, what do you see most accounting firms do wrong and combine it with sort of the biggest innovations you witnessed in your career, what would kind of that matchup look like? Or what do accounting firms still do wrong, despite all the tech that's still around, besides what we just mentioned? If there is anything else left to mention.
Oh, golly gosh. I think, golly, I don't know where to start.
It's
with
a
this.
hard one.
It's just a big one.
It is a big one.
And look, I'm not the oracle either. Like, I have views on things. Some of them are tried and tested. Others are like, seems really obvious. Why is no one doing that?
Such as?
And I don't, well, such as the workflow manager COO type. Like, why does nobody do that? I've seen it done in one firm, and it was amazing. Okay. I've done the business case in a large firm for it, and gosh, it saved a lot of money.
Was it implemented?
No.
Why is that?
It's revolutionary. That would change the way we've always done it. Yeah, because the opportunity cost of the way you've always done it is millions of dollars.
That's a good segue into my next question. Like, part of your role for many years has been to implement new tech and essentially change management.
Yeah.
What have been some of the kind of biggest challenges with that, or biggest learnings?
So for me, being quite outspoken and sometimes seeing things quite black and white, and the phrase that I use is "it's a no-brainer," is that just because it's a no-brainer to Shaye doesn't mean that it's a no-brainer necessarily to everybody. And so one of the things, particularly working with senior levels of partners in firms, is this thing about innovation and challenging the status quo, and all of the beauty of doing amazing new things is great. But if you can't approach it with the right level of empathy, you will literally shoot yourself in the foot. So what I'm talking about is where I think, a top-down approach doesn't always necessarily work, because the greatest pain, I suppose, that is requiring something to be changed is within the doing level of the firm rather than the leadership level of the firm. So if we've got accountants rekeying data from here to here, they're annoyed. The partner doesn't do it, so they might even know that that's annoying. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that. We're more likely to have, or certainly some techniques that I've found really effective, is what I call the Fomo effect, or the Atlassian effect, right? You get groundswell from within the heart of the business that feeds FOMO upwards. So this is amazing. We should be doing this. I've just saved all this time. Here's all the reasons why you, dear partners, should support this, blah, blah, blah. So up rather than down. But the thing that I think is so important is to actually understand that the leaders of our firm have been experts in their field for a really long time. And of course that commands, a level of respect and all of that sort of stuff. But at a personal level for them, what we often see is their entire sense of self is wrapped up in that expertise and what I do at work. I am an accounting partner. I lead a firm of blah. This is me. So when we are in a position of either change management or change introduction or innovation or any of that stuff, some of the things we talk about can actually challenge people to their core of their self-worth and their whole sense of self. And we have to be mindful of that. We have to be really empathetic to that. And I learned that the hard way, but I'm so glad that I did. One of my favorite people in the whole universe, who is an accounting partner, told me one day that I'm a bulldozer. And I was so angry and so offended and got really shirty about it. But I was so glad that that happened, because what he taught me, he said, sometimes, bless you, you're great and I love your ideas, but gosh, take a breath. He said, sometimes if you can approach a conversation when someone has a different view and say, that's interesting, you give yourself the space to consider that you might not have all the information and that someone that thinks something different to you might actually teach you something. So I obviously learned that the hard way, but I'm so grateful that I did, because I must have been a nightmare to deal with. I got a lot done, but, but that's really important, because if we roll in and we're like, yo, partners, you need to be doing this, and, this is such an old way of thinking and blah, 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 where actually it's quite threatening and attacking to their sense of self, but it's not nice.
Yep.
So where I do honestly think we need to park being nice for the benefit of the industry and firms and stuff like that, we do have to be empathetic to that. So when we're doing this stuff, we have to be so deliberate to sketch out the WIFM, what's in it for me, at every single level that the change touches. So not just the cool kids that want to run with whatever, but for the leaders of the firm, for everyone. So if it's, again, my same example, rekeying data from here to here, there's a clear WIFM for the person doing it, because they don't have to rekey. It's a no-brainer, exactly. The partner is like, meh, I had to do it, so they can do the hard work.
I can totally see someone saying
that. Yeah. Oh, don't worry.
And then you tell them the cost is like, well, it's going to cost us this much per month for this much to implement the system. And like, nah, Mary can do it. Mary does a great job at it.
But if you can unpick that and say, well, tell me about that. Tell me about, if you had a choice, would you still do it that way? If you had to debit and credit, what do you oh no, I'd give it to someone else to do. Okay, so in the context of your team, in the context of your firm, that is costing you blah. The opportunity cost of that is also costing you blah. So add those two things together, and it is 5 times more expensive than this one process change. Oh, and I'm pretty sure that affects your profit distribution. Oh, so just have to be clever and empathetic about the way we approach those things. That's what I've learned. That's the answer to your question. I did answer one question.
I like it. It's good. And I guess I think the other thing we talked about before the podcast was you mentioned something interesting, where the perception is it's the bigger the firm, the more likely it invests in technology and leads kind of the industry, etc. Whereas you said you don't really believe that's the case. Can you expand a bit more on that?
So even when I've been working in big firms, little firms, I've had a reasonable network within the broader industry. So I see leadership surface from many corners of that. And what I don't see is consistent leadership from the large firms. I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think that they're big ships. It is hard to bring change in a very large organisation. There's definitely an appetite to achieve consistency. And so running at that aspiration of consistency also makes things very slow, because many of the large firms in Australia are federated firms, so they're independently owned offices that work together in a network sense, or whatever that looks like. So whilst you might be in a role that is responsible for, bringing about consistency or innovation or whatever, you don't necessarily have the authority across all of those organisations to be able to be effective. There's also, because of that federated model, a sort of the investment piece is not there. So it takes a contribution of all of those offices to tip into a pool to fund certain things.
And usually it's marketing based as well.
Well, usually it is marketing, and I think that's important. But I think the perception is that there's a lot more available resource and money to execute or to stay up to date and to deliver that leadership and whatnot. But that's not what those centralized functions actually do, or they're allowed to do. They're not allowed to do it. It's probably closer to what I think. Where I actually see the leadership coming from is from boutique firms, and I think the mechanism for that is actually really, really, really smart people leaving some of the big firms and saying, I actually want to either join or start a boutique firm and run it in a way that aligns with my values. That isn't a big thing where I'm, maybe not heard or whatever that thing looks like. And I can do it the way I want to. So there's obviously a size thing where you can roll out change a lot more nimbly. And so walk the talk, not just talk the talk. I think there's that thing. But I also think it's a function of the decision-making structure as well. So, so many cooks in the kitchen, so many. I don't know that we would ever provide advice to one of our clients that says, or like, let's just pretend it was BHP, right? We would never ask all the shareholders what they thought on a decision to get something across the line, because nothing would ever get done. And so, but we tolerate that in our firms because that's literally what happens every day of the week. We have decision paralysis because we have so many chiefs, right?
Yeah.
Which is just fascinating. And look, there's no shortage of want. I think everyone wants to do amazing things. It's just the gap between the talking and the doing.
So how do you bridge that? What's the best way to do
that? You dedicate resource and you assign authority, and you actually have someone that in the firm that is supporting that authority. Because I've seen too much, I don't know what the right word is for it, but good intentions will get someone to do blah, but at the end of the day, they don't have real authority. They don't have real, they can influence as much as they like, but unless there's someone backing them in the business, like the loudest partner, whether they call it the managing director, whatever that person is, needs to have that person's back, because there isn't enough capacity for it to come from partners because they have their ledger to run and their teams to run and all that. It has to be a dedicated function. Well, in a normal commercial business, they call it the PMO, right? People come together, make amazing things happen and get it happening in the business. They don't distract the customer-facing team with this stuff, They get it done from the inside. So I don't know why we don't have that in accounting firms. Well, I do know, but we should. I know exactly why we don't have that.
Because of what you just said?
Yeah, because of the model and, the way profit sharing works and decision making and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very different to like a corporate, where in a corporate like a Westpac, like there's a problem, cool, let's just throw money at it. There's $1 million, go and work on a project, get a whole bunch of consultants, someone gets it done. I think in an accounting firm where it's like, ooh, this $1 million comes out of our pocket. That's my kid's school fee. That's my new holiday to Aspen. That's painful.
Even a little bit, right? Like, yeah. I think about, I was a team
Plus,
of
they're
one.
accountants. They love counting money. Like, that is what they do. They're like, shit, that's going to cost us this much.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think that it's a huge missed opportunity. I think even a small investment in dedicated focus with the right level of authority can bring about like, think about the cloud adoption that we achieved at BDO. I didn't move all the clients to the cloud, but I gave everyone the tools to go and do that. And I wasn't paid $1 million. That didn't cost $1 million.
But you were the champion of the change, basically, and that's what you were saying. Someone's dedicated, got the time to tinker and think about stuff, and actually wants to do. Yeah. But finding a champion, like, sure, you had the curiosity and you want to do it, but most people just want to do their job and get in, get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hardest bit. I want to move on to what you do now, like, because you've kind of gone from being a user and a buyer of tech to being on the other side, and that's actually selling it. Tell us a bit about what made you go into Mindbridge and what Mindbridge actually does.
So Mindbridge, you can edit that bit out if you like. So Mindbridge is AI-based, AI-powered, I should say, risk discovery platform, mainly targeted at the moment at external audit firms. So really enhancing the way that they deliver really high quality audits. I guess the base premise behind it is we should be aspiring to a much higher level of assurance within that function. And if we can do that at a similar cost with a better mix of resources between people and tech, then we're winning. So that's basically it at its core. So leveraging AI, within its, I guess, one of its core superpowers, which is anomaly detection. And immediately we can apply anomaly detection thinking to what we do in audit, forensics, anything like that.
Yep.
So that's really cool. Where I see the product is quite a future fit product. We haven't such a highly regulated industry, such a change adverse customer. So our audit firms, audit partners are always going to be the most conservative and risk mitigating, well considered partners in a firm. You normally don't see head of innovation coming out of audit, but there's a good reason for that, right? They are the ones that have things on lockdown. They look at controls and making sure things are in order, and that really, I've got this on lockdown. It's really well looked after, so it makes sense. So it's an interesting product to introduce to the Australian market.
Is there anything similar to it now, though?
No,
there are tools that they use.
Yeah, look, there are tools that are digitizing the audit process, but not tools that leverage AI in a risk discovery sense. So we might hear a little bit from some of those those other tools that digitize the process about leveraging machine learning, but it's a completely different function. It's like a surface level.
So would you say it's first
it's
of a
different.
kind?
Yeah, I would definitely say I haven't seen anything like the capability.
And it got a lot of traction as well, like in North America and UK, apparently thousands of firms.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, lots and lots of customers in North America. There is a slightly different regulatory landscape, particularly in the US. However, what I've found really interesting is the US is a place that still writes paper checks, right? So they're nowhere near
amazing.
Like in terms of digital accounting land, nowhere near how progressive we are in Australia. But it doesn't quite, I don't know, and they're eating it up. Like they just think it's amazing. Maybe it's just their appetite for, I don't know, doing new things, being a bit more bullish. Maybe we're a little bit more conservative in Australia. We certainly like to follow the UK in what they're doing, having a lot of traction in the UK, which is great. And we've got some amazing customers in Australia, and the ones that are adopting, whether they stick with Mindbridge or whatever it is, they're actually demonstrating a mindset that says, I will make my audit data-driven from the very first minute, which I think is where the mindset has to be. I'm less interested in, well, obviously I'm invested in what the tool looks like because it's my job, but that is more important to me, that they're actually thinking, of course I need to be data-driven in the way I approach my audit, because if there's so much data, how did I ever do it with just a trial balance? Like seriously, how did I give anyone assurance over anything? I know how we do it, but, given this capability, why would I do it this way? There's no way I could deliver the quality of assurance old way versus new way, right? So it's been interesting, and I'm not an auditor by trade, so it's been quite challenging for me on a technical front. So I've had to pull out my CA books and blah, blah, remember what audit risk is made up of and blah, 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 and what substantive testing is and da-da-da. But it's just the thing that I love about it is working with firms that have the mindset, so they actually, the mindset is there. Do I still do a lot of coaching of mindset? Yeah, I do, but because I'm in a sales role, I can't spend all week changing people's minds about whether they should, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's been the feedback in Australia, like to customers that have used it?
So if the mindset's there, they love it. Is
it picking things up a lot more?
Absolutely.
A lot faster.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's actually quite fun when we do a proof of concept that lays the two processes next to each other. Like, what would you, and it's not about you did a bad job. It's about you didn't have the tools. You did the best with what you had, right? But now that you have a tool set, look at all this gold that's fallen out. And often what we see, the thing that excites me, compliance doesn't really excite me, is what did I learn that actually added value to that customer, to that client? So, yes, they're obviously engaging you to tell them that their financial statements are free from material misstatement, blah, blah, blah. But if I'm a CFO, I want you to tell me something I don't know. Tell me where there's gaps in my control so I can make them better. Tell me where you think there might be exposure to, if there's fraud risks or whatever. Tell me that so I can go and make it better, because that makes me look awesome. Yep. So that's actually the jump that we're seeing. It's kind of like in accounting land where we talk about adding more value to clients rather than just cranking out tax returns and putting numbers in a box. It's almost the same idea, which is very different for auditors. Very, very different.
Well, I saw the examples on the website when I was doing my prep for our podcast. It was like, I think one of the examples, like, he picked up an anomaly which is like $3.69, something they need to reconcile, but like because of that anomaly, he picked up the client overpaid like tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars for something. And probably did it in like 5 seconds,
exactly.
Just by checking a whole bunch of data into it.
That was such a fun, I won't tell you who the client was, but such a fun story because, the setting was a boardroom and a presentation screen, and all of these auditors going, why is it flagged that? It's a false positive. That's dumb, blah, blah, blah. That transaction's fine. And when we unpicked it and realised that it had actually flagged patterns of and it wasn't GST because it was North American customer, but that the tax had been calculated wrong, and then extrapolating that across the entire data set, we were like, whoa, would never have seen that. And it was just like, you couldn't write it better. You could not write it better. And that's not going to happen in every data set, but it's amazing.
But you've got the tool, because there might not be issues. Like, the idea is, sure, you've got good clients and you've been auditing them for a while, and hopefully they've got good controls based on you coming back then telling them that every year. But you've got the tool to pick things up when you need to.
Exactly.
What was it like to switch into selling? Like, from buying and using to selling now? It's a totally different skill set.
Yeah, well, yes and no. So change management is selling. It's just moving people.
Influence,
Having said that, in change management, you don't have to ask people for money. Oh, no, you do. That's a business case. Righto. But yeah, interesting. So when I started, I literally started the week before, like, the world went into lockdown for COVID. So even though I knew I was going to be full-time from home, I didn't quite appreciate, or obviously everyone's world got turned upside down. So selling in the, COVID as my first go ever at selling was a bit scary, to be honest. A little bit scary. But what was interesting is, when we always talk about the value of that people bring when they're outside of our industry. So I love it when lawyers look into our industry, or someone else from outside looks in and goes, why do you guys do that thing? Because it interrogates it, right? So I'm not an experienced seller at all. I had to learn what a sales process was. I didn't know how to use HubSpot. I was like, what do I fill out in this CRM? Like, I literally had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, it's not in the CA handbook.
Yes, no. But do I know how to talk to a prospect? Do I know how to formulate a value proposition? Do I know how to move people and help them with their mindset? Do I know how to formulate a contract? Like, that stuff, fine. But talking to the rest of the team, like, the accounting industry is its own special beast of a customer, honestly. Just a different way. Decisions are made strangely. If you haven't ever sold into the accounting industry, it is a strange way to engage. Like, this concept of, we'll go top down and we'll go and talk to the managing partner of that firm. And I was like, mate, if you ring the managing partner of that firm, A, you won't get through his PA, and B, you'll never get a look in. There are people that it's their job to filter up, right? So all these learnings was just really fascinating, because people saying to me, oh, can you help me with blah? Oh, you know a lot about this. And I'm like, I've never sold before. Don't ask me that. Like, I don't know. But it's just a different way of looking at things. So it was scary, and I learned so much, so much. I have, a massive appreciation for what happens within the internal mechanisms of a tech business, and how that influenced some of the experience that I used to have on the buying side. And now I understand it better, because I used to be like, no, mate, I'm not going to get the national lead into this conversation. You need to sell me. I'm not wasting his time unless you can sort me out. Like, I'm literally his filter.
Yeah.
And I always used to think, why are you doing that? That's so annoying. But now I understand why. And I also like the providers. I don't like calling them suppliers, because it's a yucky thing. I don't like the word customer, and I don't like the word supplier. My colleagues that we used to work together on increasing cloud adoption with when I was in my role at BDO, my favourite ones were the ones where I actually had a relationship with, that actually said to me, so what are you actually trying to achieve? And I'd be like, well, here's my whole strategy. And they're like, oh, great. Well, we can insert here, 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 and here. I'm in Sydney. You're in Melbourne. I'm in Adelaide, obviously. I'm in Sydney, so I'll go to your Sydney office. I'll work with the champions there. I've got someone in Brisbane. They can work. That worked so well. But that's not the way the tech businesses normally think about it. They're like, sold. Next one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the relationship piece was really missing. And now I understand why I had some experiences like that. And I knew I never liked it. I was like, I don't like dealing with these guys. Am I going to choose the best tool for the problem? Yeah, of course. But like some of them are yuck. But there is some real gold in that. So it's just been interesting to see a tech business start to take some of that on board and build it into their model, because I personally think it's game-changing. Like, I've been buying for a long time. I can tell you right now who I like to deal with and who I spent more money with. It's just been fascinating, honestly.
What's your end game now? Like, you've done accounting firms, you've done commerce, you've done tech now. Well, what's the end game for you?
Eventually, once I don't know, I could get a little bit of imposter syndrome about this, but let's just roll with it. I don't want to be working in the accounting industry forever. At some point, I want to jump across into something that is really impactful in the world. So whether that means not-for-profit, whether it means profit for purpose, B Corp, whatever that looks like, something that, is so wrapped up in a core purpose that makes the world better, that my 10-year-old literally says to me, that's amazing. So she doesn't think what I do now is not amazing, but I don't know, we talked about this already, but she said to me like a month ago, Mum, what do you actually do all day? And because she just, sees me doing what I do, and my boundaries are quite good, so she doesn't have to fight for my attention. I run my day pretty well. I never used to, but I'm quite pleased about the way that works now. And I'm telling us, I do this, and it's AI. AI is amazing. It's so cool and helps people do this, and then they don't have to do this all day, and it's amazing. She just goes, why? And my little heart broke, because I thought, oh my God, I put so much time and effort into some of these things, and a 10-year-old just can't see the impact on the world that has. So I want to be doing something that does that. So something that is so obvious, even to a young person, that they can see the connection between the things, the activities I do, the time that I put in, and some kind of really meaningful outcome in the world.
I mean, you consider yourself an impact champion, like already, and you're part of Shaye and a couple of other organizations that are all about, I guess, female entrepreneurs and empowerment, etc. Isn't that kind of all part of that play?
It is. I'd like it to be my day job at some point, though.
A permanent Shaye activator?
Yeah. Because it's that side hustle stuff, right? You got to feed people at the end of the day. And that's the bridge that I'd like to create. So, there's knowledge stuff that I want to do. There's network stuff I need to do. There's, leadership stuff I'd like to do that helps me land in a spot where I can both feed people and be part of an organisation that does that thing.
Have you ever wanted to be a partner?
No.
No? Like even when you were a young accountant, you're like,
No.
why is that?
What have you been reading? Because I don't see myself fitting into the mould that is traditionally drawn for partners. I don't like the business model. I think it doesn't always incentivise behaviours that are the best for the business and for the people in the business.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I'm not quite sure about the. This is going to get me in trouble.
I've got an edit button, don't I?
Yeah. I don't know. I and look, people might throw stones and say, "Gosh, you're overly entitled," but I never thought that I should have to pay for the privilege. I always thought that I would pay for it with blood, sweat, and tears and outcomes for the business, rather than going and trying to convince a bank to give me some money to buy goodwill. Yeah.
You can be a salaried partner. There's a place for you there as well.
Oh, but that's a rundown, you see. Yeah, I was always challenged by that. And I have many friends that are accounting partners and I love them dearly, and none of them fit into this box, this generalized box that I'm talking about. But
the only reason I ask is like because there is that big impact piece there for some of them. Like they look at it as, hey, I'm actually, especially those that specialize in the not-for-profit sector, for example, or any business. They're like, well, I'm changing livelihoods, I'm changing families, I'm helping the world. As I said, especially if they are in that not-for-profit space.
Maybe that's been my problem, Michael. I've been too disconnected from clients for a long time. I don't know. Maybe that's a way for me to bridge it. I did make it hasn't been published yet. I was going to say, I did make a bold statement in a blog recently that I would never, ever work in practice again. Maybe I'll have to.
Yeah.
I know. Depends on the practice, perhaps.
Indeed. Or start something yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you've been passionate about gender equality, and we're talking about like Shaye Girl Shaped Flames, which is another organization.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about what it was like to be, well, we briefly touched on it, being a female sort of in a male-dominated world, trying to drive change. Do you feel that's changed a lot over the last 10 years? With all the initiatives and kind of, what's that term? Positive action or positive?
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action, yes.
Yeah. I think it's changing. The thing I'm really careful about when I talk out loud about these things is that everyone has their own truth, and some people's truth can be a fair bit more brutal than others. So I've got colleagues that literally look at me and go, "Why would you go in, 50 best female accountants, or why would you nominate for that? Like, why do we need we don't need a special award for women, blah, blah, blah," because they've never actually experienced any discrimination or any anything negative that's been connected to their gender in their career, and that's their truth, right? So they have a different truth. Everyone has a different truth. So I guess my thing, what gets me really riled up about this at the moment, apart from being really, really, really tied up in the ethics of it and the morality of it, right? I've got 2 young girls. I don't want them to have to tolerate any, some of the stuff that I had to go through my career. It's just wrong, some things that happen and some things that I've seen and I've experienced, is this idea that firms everyone is struggling to get staff, right?
Massively.
Massively. And there's many, 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 many reasons for that, right? There's probably at least 5 big juicy ones. But one that for some reason gets ignored is the fact that systemically we don't create an environment that encourages really talented mid-career females to stay in the profession. There's like this cliff that they go off for a number of different reasons. sometimes we hear that sound like, oh, I started my own firm because I wanted to have enough flexibility to run my life and do my work. Sometimes it's as simple as that, but other times it's more complicated. So I just see this enormous opportunity to either entice some of those people back so that we can start to solve for our capacity issues right now, or to do it better systemically so we prevent that cliff, right? And like, I can bang on for ages about every picture of every firm we see where there's more mats than there are female partners and blah, blah, blah. But that is actually, from a commercial perspective, that is a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer. If there are people, talented people, available people, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you, address the things that are preventing them from either staying in the business, being attracted to your business, or whatever that thing is? 4 days a week is better than 0 days, right? So to me, that's a no-brainer. And that's my thing at the moment, because every firm I talk to is panicking because they can't get their work done. And it's, the big four are paying them too much money and blah, blah, blah. But literally, where do they all go? Like, there's like an actual cliff where all these amazing females fall off. So if we're not looking at that, if we start at 50-50 at grad level, and then we get to some, I don't know what the actual number is, so I'll misquote it, but it's much lower when we get to the other side of manager, they're going somewhere. If we can keep them or something, or get some of them back, we have less of a capacity problem. It's a no-brainer.
Don't a lot of firms have, part-time and flexibility and all of that sort of stuff and work from home now? Like, I'm seeing more and more of them move towards it over the last couple of years.
Oh, look, they've always had it. They've always had to have it in their HR policies, but how it actually gets executed, I think, is a different conversation. So I'll give you an example. Oh, look, I think, you're a really hard worker. I think you've earned the right to work from home on a Friday. Thanks, bud. Never mind the fact that it saves me, 2 hours, and I can do 2 hours more work, and I'm actually far more productive on a Friday than I am on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and a Thursday, because I don't have people in my ear all day in the office distracting me. Never mind all of those things. Never mind that it helps me with my mental health and running my family, and so I'm a much better, more productive, better human to be around. Never mind any of those things. Thank you for recognising that I'm a hard worker and that I've earned the right to work flexibly. No one can see me rolling my eyes on the podcast, but I'm rolling my eyes.
Yes, I can attest to it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, look, I think writing it on paper and doing it in real life are two different things. And I'm seeing a lot more genuineness to it. But I also think it's necessity, because there's the expectation to access flexibility is so much more profound now because of COVID, because we've tried it, tested, wheels didn't fall off, and you have to, it's almost like what's the thing where you have to support the opposite? There's a phrase for it. I can't think of it. But it's almost like
affirmative action kind of thing?
No, I'm trying to think of that thing that says it should be a given unless you can prove otherwise. There's a phrase I'm trying to think. Anyway, but the thing that basically says, there's always been this idea that I need to watch you do your stuff until I trust you. But now that relationship is flipped, and we have people saying, well, this is what I need. This helps me work better. There's no reason for you not to trust me. Yeah. That's your issue, not mine, P.S. So
innocent until proven guilty kind of thing.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to think of. But it's just really, really important now. I think you won't get away with being really rigid or going back to that old style lockdown where we all have to be in the office all of the time, because people will just leave because the market is so transient and there's too many, big salaries being thrown around.
It's crazy right now.
It's mental. Yeah. So we could talk about this topic for a really long time, but that's the thing that gets my goat with my commercial hat on. I'm like, this is a no-brainer.
What are some of the things, like, if you're a female that's considering the accounting industry? What sort of advice would you give now to a grad that's thinking of getting into practice, but they have other options they can go into?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a huge opportunity to do good in the world. So, to your point, being really focused on what lights you up and being, I guess, forthright about communicating that to the firm that you work in is really important. So if there's a particular area that you're naturally interested in or you're passionate about, you are going to do better than working on something that you're not interested in. So ask for alignment there as much as you can. I would also get a coach. So it doesn't have to be a paid coach or anything like that, but find a woman that you respect that is older than you. It's not a being ageist, just saying, but someone that's been around the traps a bit more than you, that you can use as a sounding board, that will sit you down before your annual pre-July salary review and say, don't ask for 1%, ask for 3% because they'll peg you back to 2%. Someone that can help with confidence, that can help I wish I had that. I mean, my first manager was amazing like that. She was my age, which was great, but she was much more experienced than me. What else? I think it can, if you are assertive enough, you can make it what you want it to be. So if you are laying an expectation for, a flexibility framework that gets the best out of you, then you've got to say it. No one's a mind reader. Ask. You don't ask, you don't get. What else? I think there's a massive opportunity. If I step 5 kilometers away from the world right now and say, if there was ever a time for women in the industry to be successful in positions of leadership or acceleration, it's now. And is it because of this, what did you call it? Affirmative action or whatever. I hate that phrase, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Is that you would be mad not to go for it, right? Take advantage of that opportunity. It is not tokenism. It is not. It is a correction. So back yourself in, run really hard at it, and just be amazing. Don't be shy.
Speaking of mentors and coaches, like you brought that up, and I think it is powerful. Who do you really admire in the industry, or who's had the most impact on you that you, I don't know, really look up to?
I really look up to a few people, and that is an excellent question, Michael.
Trying to flatter me again. Buying time there.
Buying time. Someone that really inspires me, and it's got nothing to do with the award she's just won. It is all to do with how she is as a human, is Rebecca Maharlik. So I think we were internet friends for a little while and met at an accounting conference, but I can tell you right now the first time we met, I was sick as a dog. I was physically unwell. I was mentally unwell. I thought I hated the world. Everything was horrible. And we sat and we sort of spilled our own truths. And that was just like our first interaction ever. And she was the most empathetic, most supportive, like just wonderful, wonderful human, almost that I'd ever met. And every time I think about the things that drive her and the reason she does things, I'm just always impressed. And she will go, oh my God, Shaye, shut up. I'm just doing my thing. But she's so, sometimes the way we have a lot of views that we share that are similar. The way she articulates herself is like 1 trillion times. I aspire to articulate things like she does. She's just beautiful. I love the way she's working across her practice and with practice ignition. I think that is such a clever move. I think, one of the things that I've learned being on the tech side is there's not enough industry voice within tech, and having that fluid influence within the business is so valuable. What else? I just adore her. Clearly, okay. I adore her.
Would you consider, is she a mentor? Or just someone you look up to?
I definitely look up to her. I think we kind of mentor each other. I don't know what that means, but we just seem to have
you can always learn from anyone, really.
Well, and that's right. There's someone else I really look up to is Andrew Vanderbeek. So he is much younger than me, just to be clear. But the reason for that, there's lots of reasons, but one of them is because for someone that is so loud and proud about some big topics and contributes loudly to the industry on a bunch of things, he's incredibly humble dude. So he literally just does the stuff he does because he loves his team and he loves his clients so much. And he's genuinely excited about the good that accountants can do in the world, and that it's no more complicated than that. And it's never unclear.
No, he's an awesome bloke. Yeah,
he's awesome, and I'm so privileged to do some work with him and the team. And
are you part of the Rumble thing? Did they do?
No.
Oh, I'll put in a good word for you.
No, right. I have massive FOMO.
Let's do some rapid fire questions just because I'm conscious of time.
Okay.
What does a downtime look like?
My downtime?
Yeah, if you have
mostly time with the girls. So I coach both of their basketball teams, which I absolutely love. I used to be quite a good basketballer. I'm not now. I just didn't keep it up. But that is one of my favourite things to do because I love watching them grow and develop, and they just get to see their mum do something different and spend time in a different way.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What's your favourite quote?
If it's not F yes, then it's no. So it's a Mark Manson quote. It's not on the wall behind me, but it should be because it was all over my house for a really long time. So I actually came across that Mark Manson stuff when I was going through my divorce a number of years ago, which was brutal. But it helps me make decisions all the time. So if it's kind of like Ali Garrett's all in. If you're not all in, you're out. It's exactly the same thing, just a much less refined way of articulating it. So dating, yeah or no.
No, I came across that quote many years ago, and I've lived by it as well. When you try, especially like when you try and cut down a lot of stuff going on in your life, it helps you with decision making a lot. Absolutely. Otherwise, you just get sucked into this meeting and that networking event and that one, that stupid podcast with Michael and that. Yeah. I'm glad I was a fuck yes. So what have you read, watched, or learned recently that's had the most impact on you?
Dr. Adam Fraser's The Third Space. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly what he does, but he's amazing. I think he's a researcher, but he's also an amazing speaker. So that book is all about how you don't bring your work monster home, whether you work from home or not, and creating that space between one thing and another that helps you show up. So I heard him speak when I was at a conference in New Zealand, and he told a story about a CEO that actually ended up building a second entrance to his home after coming home one day and watching his two kids sprint away and hide because he would come home as this angry monster. And I burst into tears. I was blubbering in the front row because I thought, oh, my God. Because at the time, that's how my work life kind of worked. Yeah. And I just always used to feel so bad, and I would snap it because it's not their fault that my boss was mean to me and blah, 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 blah. And it was all about creating, it's mindfulness stuff, right? It's all meditation and or whatever that thing is that you create. Massive, huge difference for me. Amazing. Okay.
So how do you do it? How do you implement that in your life now?
So because I'm permanently at home, so my day works like I start at 6:15 in the morning because head office is in Canada, crank out my work, pick the girls up at school pickup time, and in the 10 minutes, school is just there, by the way, so it's like 5 minutes away. There's 10 minutes before that in my diary every day is meditate, and I literally lie on the floor just here, do a guided meditation, and it shifts my brain. I shut the door every single day. Wow. And if I don't do it, I'm like, oh, I just had to, just to get yourself a snack, and I'm this horrible person. I'm not present. It's just, it makes such, and it's so simple. So simple.
Yeah, okay. And do you use an app or?
Yeah, I've got a couple of apps. The one I like,
Headspace or?
I've got Calm, but I've also, so the daily Calm on there is good because that's 10 minutes, or there's one called 10% Happier, and it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it's really, really good, and they do like meditation challenges, and it's very plain English, like it's not woo-woo in it. It's very modern, and it's really cool.
Okay. And have the kids commented on the difference it's made?
My eldest is able to articulate it. My youngest, it comes out in her. So the way she's a very unsettled child. She's always been a barometer for things that are going on in our life. So if I'm settled, then she is also settled. My husband will be able to tell you, though. He will be able to tell you. Because I remember him saying to me, "You are awful. You have to, like, you can't do that. We hate you when you're like that." And I was like, oh, that's awful. It's like,
you know what? I've never read the book, but I know the term, and the only reason I know it is there's a gym that my now wife's and I used to go to, like a little tiny gym, like, I don't know, 6x6 kind of places. And it was called the third space, and I asked the owner, like, "Oh, by the way, what made you call it the third space?" And he described basically that concept of, for mental health, it's really good, and just to have that third space. Like, oh,
how good,
very cool. So that was, the third space. Everyone goes there and do their workouts. What have you bought recently that's had a tremendous impact on you? Or that was just really cool and handy?
Oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I was going to say my new headphones, but
I was going to say, I knew it. Besides the stupid headphones.
Otherwise, they are very helpful because I'm not like, I don't miss calls because I'm fumbling around with them. But yeah, the multi-point Bluetooth headphones make a huge difference.
Okay.
But also for my tinnitus as well, they've helped me train that out of me a little bit. Helps me focus.
It could be like the program that we're using. I think it doesn't like Bluetooth things.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it wants like that perfect sound quality.
That's fair enough.
So yeah, it could actually be our system, not your headphones are probably incredible. A last question. Who would you want to have a drink with the most in the world, past or present?
Great question.
Funny, I had $1 for every time I heard that, Jay.
No. There's so many. Oh my gosh, I can't think of her name, but the Bumble CEO.
Ah, yes. Oh why her?
Whitney. Is her name Whitney? That's her last name. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of her name?
Whitney Wolf.
Whitney Wolf, that's right.
Yeah.
Because I just want to hear about those awful toxic Tinder blokes and how they turned. And I want to know, like, you read stuff in the media, right? But I'd actually love to know the real story. I'd love to know how they went dirty on it. And I would love to know what were those things, like we talk about these blackboardy things behind me and these affirmations and stuff, right? What did she use to really, go, this is what I'm going to do and this is why I'm going to do it, and these are the things that literally help me get through each day. What were those things? How did she do that? I'd love to pick her brain.
Very cool. I was like, was that how you met your husband? That's why it's Whitney Wolf? I'm like, Whitney, thank you so much.
I wish it was now, but no, it was actually Tinder, which is good.
So my story was Bumble, so I was like, I've got to thank
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, how good. Well, I'll thank her for you.
Shaye, it's been so much fun. Thank you so much for all your time. Probably could talk for another 3 hours.
Yeah, we probably could.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in and hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like our podcast and share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or wherever it is you hang out so more people can benefit from these speakers. Also, please subscribe on our website so you get all of our latest episodes. And if there's anything else I can help you with, or you have speakers you'd love to hear from, or some feedback about the current episode, please feel free to send an email to michael@recruitmentexpert.com.au. Until then, take care, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future.